Everybody, the captain here. Yeah, new digs. My mom promoted me from the basement to her living room. So, all you trolls can believe I've moved up. Anyway, I got a video request from a colleague, and he wanted my opinion on the hashtag #LiveTheWage. And I already kind of knew what it was, just reading through it, and after looking it up, basically it's this challenge to live on minimum wage, to see if you can do it. And he wanted my opinion. Well, here's my opinion. My opinion is that of all arguments about minimum wage, raising the minimum wage, and that is that there is no economic merit for minimum wage. There's no economic merit for raising a minimum wage. What people need to do is have self-respect and say, no, I'm not going to work for that little. I can't live on that. Now, here's the thing, though, with the if you want to take away the typical Republican, libertarian, conservative response, which everyone's a sucker for, they go through it and they attack the argument they assume the argument has intellectual honesty or intellectual merit. When in reality, you got to realize that the minimum wage debate, or live the minimum wage, whatever else, it's not the left posing a genuine, valid economic argument. They're using it as a political tool and strategy to paint conservatives, Republicans, blah, 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 as these evil people that hate the poor. And if the Republicans ever got someone like me who was intelligent or had their heads out of their asses and had some fucking balls, you'd address it. Say, you know what, fuck you. You don't give a damn about the poor. Because if you did, you'd be championing things like that raise the minimum wage legitimately, genuinely, like getting rid of corporate taxes, like getting rid of regulations. So if there's so much demand for a wage and labor, that would drive the wages up. Instead, the left, and I even believe that the left knows that you just artificially increase the wage, like artificially have price controls, that does not adhere to the realities of the labor market or any other market. So if the Republicans or conservatives or libertarians at any time want to call out the intellectual dishonesty of this argument, they could, but they're so stupid. And they'll cite an economic study. Academic studies show this. So here's my whole opinion about the minimum wage, or live the wage as it is. Ignore it. Just freaking ignore it. It's these people. If you really wanted to help the poor people, you wouldn't just. It's not as simple as let's just raise wages. It's not what just raise the minimum wage, because you get into the very simple economic argument. Well, why $9 an hour? Why not $100 an hour? Why not $10,000 an hour? You got to point out the childlike naivete of just let's just cap gas prices. Let's just be like Venezuela and just we're going to tell you what it's going to be. And then go to the real adult mature solution, which is, all right, we got it. You want higher wages? Well, we got to increase demand for labor. All right. Now, another thing with the live the wage, this is the other aspect, and it's particularly insipid and disgusting, is where the politicians, the scum of the earth, are now gravitating towards, like, I'm going to try and live the wage, and then they talk about how hard it is. And it shows you, if you really look at it, it shows you how spoiled rotten these people are. These people had easy lives. I don't know about you, but I worked for minimum wage. I made $3.30 an hour when I was in the 7th grade. That's quite some time ago, of course. But when I was in college, I worked for $6.90, which is just a little bit above minimum wage. And I lived on that. And the whole point of live the wage is, one, you should not, or what it exposes is that you should not be relying on minimum wage. That's not supposed to support a family. And two, if you have a family and you do not have the commensurate skills to earn more than minimum wage, you're fucked, and you deserve to have a poor life. You made stupid decisions. You made financial choices, primarily having children you couldn't afford, that you can't afford, and now you get to suffer the misery. And having to live the wage should be a scathing lesson, which it was to me and anyone else who's lived on minimum wage, to never go back. To work your ass off so you have skills that are in demand that you don't have to live it. But, so I've lived that. I've walked the walk, talked the talk, talked the walk, whatever it is. Many of us have, and it was a temporary and fleeting situation. I only worked at $6.90 an hour for, I think, no more than 3 months before I got promoted and started making, I don't know, $7.20 or whatever. It was a fair increase. I did it, I survived it, but it required discipline and budgeting. But what it ultimately belies, especially on the part of the left and these politicians, is that they're clueless. They haven't lived real lives. They've never been poor. They don't know, like, I had to budget. Oh, you had to budget? Like, they actually go through their grocery list. Like, really? You had to do what I did when I was fucking 18 years old, and you're a 45-year-old Democrat senator cunt that can't fucking figure that out because you sucked your hubby's cock and he gave you a ton of money and daddy was rich and he was a fucking mayor of Baltimore, Nancy Pelosi. I mean, really? Oh, wow, you had to budget? You had to spend within your means? Oh, live the wage. In other words, you're like, this is the first time they've ever had to actually be adults and support themselves within the confines of reality in the form of minimum wage. So, that's my opinion. I know it's kind of a general rambling, but how do you respond to something that's so intellectually dishonest? They don't care to solve the real problem by permanently fixing the economy, meaning making it grow so that there's increased wages. They think it's as simple as, let's just increase the wage. Well, then, if that's the case, let's just make gas 25 cents a gallon. If that's the case, let's make Xboxes $1. Let's just randomly start assigning prices to things and ignore that whole fucking reality. So it shows you their ignorance of economics. And then when they show how, what's the word I'm looking for? How selfless and hardworking, and they're down with the people that... I'll tell you another story. Not my roommate, my next door neighbor back in college, he was this fucking liberal hippie type and, 4.0 genius kid, and he wasted his genius on going to some liberal arts thing, and he was like in charge of the University of Minnesota Democrats or whatever. And Minnesota gets cold, so it was like to show their solidarity with the homeless, these idiots would go out and live in boxes in the middle of winter, and they freeze their fucking asses off. And he ended up like staying in the box for like an hour. He's like, fuck this, and he went back into his nice warm dorm. That's what it is. It's this token thing that these spoiled brat elite preppies who've never really suffered, they're gonna live a month on live the wage, a week, an hour in their cardboard box. Well, you did what I did, motherfuckers, and that is patrol your fucking ass off in fucking sub-zero temperatures, make it $6.90 an hour, and you'd be happy to get overtime during Christmas break and time and a quarter if you get overtime and it landed on a holiday. Why don't you go without seeing your family for 6 months? Why don't you go and be miserable? Why don't you actually live the fucking wage? Not as like a token, not as like a little fucking, oh, look at me, it's like a fucking gimmick to get election or to get votes. Why don't you actually be that? Why don't you actually become independent? Why don't you actually go live the wage? Right? Then maybe you'd actually learn about what it takes to survive in life and live life and make ends meet. And then maybe your eyes would open up and say, oh, the long-term real solution, the one's going to not just get me votes, not just temporarily, and then consequently drive people away. Look at Seattle. I can't wait to see what happens with Seattle with the $15 an hour minimum wage. Why don't you come up with solutions that are based in the real world, based in the labor market, based in the real economy, rather than political solutions that destroy the economy, destroy the labor market, drive investment in businesses away, just so you can get some fucking votes. But again, that's what live the wage is. It's the ego of typically leftists to make themselves feel better at the expense of everybody else. It really is. So that's my thought on live the wage. You want the solution? My solution is it's not my solution. It is the solution. Get rid of corporate taxes. Get rid of regulations. Stop criminalizing and villainizing companies, and that will drive up demand. And then the you think they got a fucking minimum wage debate in Singapore? You think there's a minimum wage debate in the Bakken oil field? There's no minimum wage debate because there's so much demand for labor. The point is moot. But you people in your shitholes like Detroit and Seattle, wherever else the Democrats are in charge of, you go ahead and demand raise wages. In the meantime, I also demand that Jennifer Aniston come over here in lingerie and give me a blowjob. We should just order it, and it's just as likely to be as effective or realistic. Toodles.